Let me introduce Philippe Parreno. He's the artist. Of course, we are all here because of his great exhibition in the Lichthof and first floor, the ground floor of the Gespräch. And on his side is Emanuele Coccia. Emanuele is a philosopher, professor in Paris. He wrote some books. The most important, I think, and well-known became this about the life plans. Die Wurzeln der Welt in German. It's a very influential book and a contemporary debate about new forms of cosmology. And I would say in the center of this idea is a new description of what the meaning and the effects of plans for this planet are. And Philippe is not stopping directing light into my face. And I think Philippe recommended me your books, and it's fantastic because before I did read this book from Emanuele about the good or the moral of things, it's a very, very nice small book that has a very strange perspective on capitalism and how this system creates moral by making advertisement, and it's a different perspective on the truth of reality, and especially the truth of things and the ethics of things. And so it was a completely shift when I discovered this book that Philippe recommended me. And now you write a book about Philippe. What is the idea?
Capitalism.
To be honest.
From capitalism to the plans to. What was the book on? I didn't get that book. That was
from object to plans to humans. So
yeah. What was that?
It is a book and advertising that published some years ago. The main idea is that to analyze advertising starting from the place where advertising normally appears, that is the woods, the city, which were actually during the entire history of at least the European civilization, the place where the city used to or express its own voice and formulate in a way its own ethical system, speaking about gods, about history, about the past and so on, or the dead and so on. And the idea is, what does it mean that in this same space where normally a city used to project its own imaginary about its own ethical or moral foundations, now that in a way only images of common use objects. And so the answer where then the advertising is not just a commercial in a way enterprise, is the idea that there is something moral or ethical within the object, that the moral is inside the things. So that was the main idea.
I think it's an interesting connection between things and
yeah,
language.
I was in a way that's the reason also why it's so important, or why it was also why in a way why it's so important in art to quit this idea of producing object. One of the most striking, I think, quality or property of your way of doing art is that since the beginning you said I do not conceive myself as an object producer, and you in a way and you not discover, but you in a way you showed during your work that the main gesture of art is not producing objects, it's not installing objects. Is the exhibition is in a way in a totally autonomous medium in a way, and this exhibition is also an extraordinary.
It was not, I think, it was the problematic of object, but I think I didn't believe at the time. I think I didn't really formulate it that way. You know, I don't have problem with art objects, not like them, but it was more the fact that also I was working with other artists, always in collaboration, And the reason why we did that is that we believe that more than an object was for me, but what was interesting was a project, you know. So it was all about to project with some others, some ideas, and therefore, because we were visual artists, or trying to be, those projects became exhibitions, you know. So, but it was a project-based enterprise rather than an object-based enterprise. So it was the fact that we kind of like decided that each of these exhibitions would be unique and singular, responding to a contingency and to a special context. And so you cannot produce them twice. And they were the product of a conversation between, you know, the actors of the show. So, and within those projects, there were some objects, you know, but they were unclear, unreally defined, and they were not really signed, but they were working in a complexion, you know, in a relation with all the objects. So it was always from the beginning on the relationship between things and people, more than the singularity of an object, which was not from your problem really, which was not like my concern.
But it seems that you developed, I would say, a unique understanding of objects, and you gave them a special name, the quasi-object. It's an object that is on one hand physically, on the other hand it's something that starts its own life if it's be a part of behavior. Simple example is the football. More sophisticated example are objects and rituals. You refer to the body. It's one part of the Speaking Stone text. What is this? Can you explain this? Because it's also related to, let's say, more than the language. It develops a language because it develops a kind of script in the behavior of the people. People do what the quasi-object let them do in a kind of ritual form. How can you integrate that in a concept of exhibition? Or
the quasi-object is a concept that I borrowed from Michel Serres, a French philosopher, which he developed in a book called Hermès, no? Le Parasite. And but I discovered that quite recently, maybe 10 years ago only. So, and I found quite useful kind of terminology, you know, to define was an object when it's totally incomplete, and or you can say it differently that the object is complete only when played, you know. Only when it's activated or been activated. Otherwise, it's like it stands for nothing. And I thought it was a good way. So the metaphor that Serres used was a football. You know, he said if you put 22 people in a field and give them an hour and a half, you quite have some chance to get a goal, or they're going to start to beat themselves up. If you give them a ball, you have a game. So the ball basically acts as the producer of the game, and by being played, it's being defined as an object. So,
it also, I think there is another aspect of the concept of quasi-object in the way you use it, which is extremely interesting. The fact that it is on the one hand incomplete, as you said, that it has to be reactivated, but then exactly because of that, it is something which is at the threshold between the subjective and the objective. In a way, the example of football is exactly that. It's something that cannot be reduced to the state to the quality of purely objectal thing. And that's again perhaps something that explains what you said earlier when you said my problem was to make projects with people and not just with objects. Objects are in a way in order to make something much more complex possible. So, where people are totally invested and not just not outside, visitor.
Yes, to work with other people was a key, was essential to me. First of all, it was a way also to go faster, because when you exchange ideas, you also produce them, while you start to talk, ideas come, so it's not no clear beginning and no clear end, and so that, and also at the time, back in the 90s, group exhibition was for me something fantastic as a concept, was quite at the time you had a couple of two curators, colleagues in Milan who were quite popular at the time, were producing fantastic group shows, and the group shows were like a film for me, they were kind of using artists or with artists and with objects, but forming together something more than what recollection is. And I found it really fascinating, me and Dominique Gonzalez-Force, and Pierre Joseph, and others. So so it was a week kind of thing, we were together producing. So the conversation was essential in a way that also, from time to time, I remember spending a lot of time with Pierre Joseph talking, and sometimes we said, it's interesting because when we talked about an idea or a project. We start to this moment where I was able to visualize what you were saying to me and the way around, and therefore we didn't have to do it. Because the difficulty of the real is that if it exists without me seeing it, then it's real,
Yeah.
In that case, out of a conversation, you can also decide like this is, it exists, what discussed, because if I'm not there, I still carry it with him. So we are on this sort of like line where we were floating on this virtual idea, this idea that things exist, but they exist with different level of intensity. They can exist in the virtual world, they can exist in the imagination, or in the real, and they oscillate between both three instances.
When I remember this book of Giselle, the parasite is the metaphor for a person that has only a relationship to relations. The opposite person has the relation to the things. The things as in the sense of object, but also, let's say, ideas or ideologies.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the sense of Sarah's, Michel said, always the people loses that believes in things and has a relation to things, because the person who is a parasite is only loyal to the relation itself.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, sometimes I think in your work, it's also a development away from, you use objects like, let's say, actors, to bring them in a field of relations, and this field is more important for the narration of whatever it is, what you create with an exhibition, and gives the exhibition a known existence. It's more than the addition of the objects. Was this, when did you start, after the group shows, with this concept? Is this, came it naturally, or was it given by the encounter with other artists? Because you made exhibitions also about Rauschenberg or Duchamp.
It's a slow construction. There's no pivot point. The pivot point for me, for the past as well, was more that at some point I decided to do things by myself. In fact, I did my come out as an artist quite recently. It's right after Zidane, so it's like 12 years ago. Not so far, not so long. I'm a young artist, and what I did when I started to produce those scripted space was taking it away from what I learned from working with in relation with all these different artists I work with. The problem is that I think maybe, I mean, the one of the reasons why I decided to shift is that it happened when I did right after Postman Time, which was an exhibition based on really close to your field because it was on stage, where it was clearly a group show based on time process, you know, and asking artists to occupy a moment rather than a space. And in order to do that, I had to convince several of the artists to come with me in that journey, and that was quite exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
So I said maybe I should also try to do it myself, you know. So I was, maybe that was the point where out of the conversation with Andre Chauvrist and the different artists that I had to convince to come to the journey, I started to formulate ideas. And I thought maybe I should also endorse my own subjectivity, you know. So it was all a combination of both, you know.
I just wanted to ask because in relationship to this quasi-object, subject and object, and as you said, that relationship to other relationship, I always found that Andy, in this sense, was an extraordinary exemplification of this extremely different stages of the artwork, because it's something which is at the same moment object and subject. It is a sort of product, but also personality. As in your film, it is she's presented, but she's someone who is looking for an activation from other people, and you let other artists reactivate this same person. So it is really a sort of perfect exemplification of this poetical statement of the fact that the artwork is a relationship, because Andy doesn't exist without this relationship to other artists. It is an object, but also a subject, and so on. So
it's also, in the case of Andy, it was also the possibility for a sign to represent the group, you know, and so the relation between an image and a group represented by this image. And but there were before Andy with Pierre, we worked for a while on a project that never really existed, called Anna Sanders, that became after the name of Russian company. But the Anna Sanders was the pre-enlist of when we made a magazine. We wanted to make a magazine a bit like one of these kind of classical magazines, Vogue, whatever. So, but instead of having a generic name like Vogue, we'll have one specific name. So the magazine will be designed for one person. And so it released in a way a portrait, not the magazine will be a portrait. So we want to make a collection of portraits, and we did one, and then we stopped. But it was already that a bit like this idea that the idea of portrait and portraiture.
Maybe it was also an attempt to be not only subjective, because I remember Anne was also given to other artists as a material, materialize herself or the idea in different forms of art. Anne is also existing in a kind of performance. And at the same time, it's, I would say, non-human. It's something that is pure fiction, pure product that becomes soulful. So that's also very, very interesting way of looking from very far away back to what a human is or can be. That's for me also in this film, and in both films in a way, an important perspective.
In the sense of what is interesting, because Andy, but also Anyone, the Fireflies, and it intrigued because you said that what was important for me also to check the life of an image or the possibility of an image to exist as such. And this is one of your most striking elements of your art, the fact that you are in a way showing every time how it is difficult to put a line between life and scenes, and signs, living beings and objects, because anyway it's also a living person, but not under a human form, and the same is for a lot of pieces here in a way, with this idea, which is extremely also exemplified, in an extremely strong way also by the floating, with this idea that life is something floating and passing through different stages of different bodies in a way, reincarnating in a way from sign to sign, body to body, and that art in a way has to show this ability of life to in a way occupy different fronts of marrying, for instance. This is extremely unique of your art. And in this case, the fact that everything, in the case of this exhibition, everything is decided, the rhythm, the breadth of the lights is decided from this lever. From the east, which is in this room, which is in a way the brain of everything, which is also influenced by the people who are coming in. So this is.
I mean, there's a bridge between both of you, given by organisms who are living in the water. It's the fish and the carnivore. And I think you have both in your work an attempt to develop this kind of animated understanding of objects or life processes that are not longer divided in subject and object, in perception and action. The moment when it both comes together is essential for your thinking about the life of plants and the life of exhibitions, I would say. If you think about your symbol of the fish, if you bring this symbol in the exhibition, how would you describe the similarity?
Yeah, perhaps just what is interesting is the idea of immersion. In a way, the fish is something, a form of life which is defined at the same, from this state of immersion. And immersion is every time something where you have a sort of perpetual switch between in the relationship between the place and the content. So in a way, the fish is immersed in water, but water is also what the consistence of or the content of this body. So, and what I found extremely strong in the exhibition of, but not just this one, in every exhibition of Philippe that I visited in a way, is this obligation for the visitor to become a very active part of the exhibition itself, not in the sense, not in the trivial sense of participatory art, in the fact that you have to do something, but just in the sense that, in a way, for instance, I had this impression yesterday and today. You are, after a couple of minutes or after passing from one room to another, you don't know if you are something different from the fishes, from the, and this is extremely strong. In a way, you are just something floating within this kind of new landscape.
I think one of the things that more and more fascinates me, but since a while now, is this notion of attention. What in the 70s was defined by Yoda as a floating attention, the analysis, meaning that the moment when you can't really, there's no order into things, so a dream and a recollection of a dream exists on the same at the same time. There's not one thing before another, and I believe that an exhibition is a place of, or should be a space where your attention is not taken by any authority. It's you drifting, basically, and making and starting to connect things together. One image with one sound and one kind of like and start to encounter a series of like uncanny synchronicities, and but there's no clear beginning and clear end, and so it's a white box, sometimes and sometimes a black box, so it's flicker, and it's not defined as a theater is defined as a black box, or cinema as a black box. It's oscillating between different form of existence. So the architecture changes when the attention. You're in cinema and suddenly the light goes on and you start to realize that there's some sound of a piano on the other side. So you wonder what it is. So you start to wonder, and then while you do that, you may pay attention to the air change, and then things move around. So Western Malese, you don't pay attention to air conditioning in museum, and yet it creates also forms. In that case, a vortex. So, and then you may pay attention to the fact that when the sun hits on the west side, the fish start to move up or down. So the temperature change, therefore the form change. And all these things are start to be linked together, creating a sort of a weird paranoid logic or a form of madness. But in fact, I'm more and more interested by this idea of delirium.
What does it mean?
It means that there's a moment when you start to enter into links, establish link relationship, and there's no way to stop that process. It's endless, which is fascinating. There was this thing which I always really liked was a conversation between Philippe Parreno and a journalist at the end of his life. And the journalist asked a question, say, what are you working on now? And the guy said, I'm working on a new novel. I didn't start, I didn't write it yet, I'm just thinking about it. And the guy said, what will be the topic of the novel? And he started to talk. And then it's like 25 pages of the guy describing like that out of his head, the book that he never really thought about before talking to the journalist about, So, and it's fully delirium, it's totally, it's fantastic. And I think it's quite, this for me, it's a moment of art. It's what it's all about in the end, That's something I didn't think about, like since a couple of weeks.
It's something you have not under control, the delirium. It's something that possesses you, and in the same way you host it. By the way, your wonderful text about this the invisible ape boy is in this it's in this magazine if you are interested. The text in which you write about this Philippe K. Dick fragment. But I have also this impression, if I see the film The Crowd, that they are possessed from something I can't see. I can feel that there is something, but I'm not sure, are they reacting or do they acting? So it's something in between.
Yeah, the Crowd is really an attempt. To me, I shot it 3 years ago and I re-edited it maybe 3 or 4 times. And this version is like maybe something quite, I'm getting there somewhere, but we talk about the collectivity and the relation to the collective and an image. And it was precisely that to see if there were a possibility for a number of people, like 300 people, to form together something which is not an audience, but something else, and that would be, what could that be? It's complicated because we shoot a crowd that quickly becomes like an audience, and in that case it is in a way a sort of a play, but with 300 actors, and they wander and they pay attention together, they become silent together. They start to dream a bit together because they're under hypnosis. They whisper together. Yeah. They start to hum and sing, and they start to dance. And they produce at some point even the city, by moving around, and the sound of the city comes in. So it's sort of a play, in a way. It's on your field.
seems to be interested in plays or in theatre. Where does it come from?
First my time was an attempt already to deal with it. I'm interested by plays, but I'm the same way I'm interested by film and cinema because it's a cool, it's a nice public space where something can be interested and be said. I like public space, and the cinema is a public space too. But the reason why I did Zidane and not is that I don't want to tell fiction, I want to tell the truth, which is difficult. So Zidane is the truth for me. He's really sweating and actually running after the ball. Even Ali is the truth, she's saying the truth. Marilyn also was, I recreated her voice, and so it's an attempt to link back cinema to phantasmagoria where it comes from. But in a way, so it's always dealing with that, this weird notion of fiction, this haunting, exactly what it means.
It's the same structure, by the way, in traditional theatre, I would say, because, of course, good actors would say, we also want to tell the truth. They act in a kind of script, but in the same time, the script is only a tool to create a kind of freedom to do what's in this moment true. So we don't know who is leaving the room in the next minute or who's entering the room. On a play, on a stage, you know that because it's scripted. You know in which moment something happens, what some person say or not. And because of this security, everything can be unsecured. And for me, very often, I have the awareness of your shows that you also find this scripted, unscripted floating of situations which are close to theatre, because you act like a director. You are so involved in creating life, but I think it's everything you do is unique. You can't take this show and bring it to Paris.
Well, I can because it's also space-based, So, as you know, here I started to do the reading of the space. I say, like I should say, like palm reading. You look at it and you say, okay, it's this specific space and a specific time, And when you ask for a title, I say, the title will be Summer 2018, Martin Roth's part, because it's what's happening, And also, not only because it's not only because it's happening, but also because it was the way I thought about the show. The show will be, a summer show with light in Berlin, and there's not so much light normally, But in the summer, it's completely open, the city open itself, people go out, the parks are full of people. So I thought the space should be completely filled with light and natural light. And that, in a way, was the first decision of a series of mad decisions, in which
I think that one of your texts that struck me more than others is this text you published in Libération, the French newspaper, where you already gave this beautiful, very, very incredible idea of an exhibition as a film without camera, which is in a way what you said also on the relationship between, the strange relationship between theatre, but which is written, but also not, in a way, a film without camera is life as itself, but put in a different condition. And also in this text you mentioned that the principle of every exhibition is what takes place every time that you used to play, but I had the same experience in Italy. When you play football, when you're a child, you used to make commentaries on what you are doing. And this is, for following Philippe, an extremely interesting situation from a metaphysical point of view, because there you have no more distinction between the fact, the person, and the commentaries about what is happening. And there is no hierarchies, no more And the extremely beautiful idea is that that in a way an exhibition is exactly that. It's an operation on the real that makes it possible that the objects, the persons, and the commentary, so also the images, are no more put in a hierarchy, so that everything. And every time that you enter in one of your exhibitions, you have this impression in a way. Because also, anyway, the idea of quasi-object is exactly this. Since the visitor is always part of this script, of this dramaturgy, you are on the same level because of the yeast, because also of the marquee, which announces a spectacle, a show, but you are part of the show because you are within the space. So this is an extremely precise definition of what happens in an exhibition, I think, and what happens this kind of exhibition so close to theater or to ritual, as you sometimes say it. So.
It's quite, but also this, I also like this idea of hyper-object, which is always defined in your field, in philosophy. So in fact, for example, that when you produce for shows, you use a 3D document, and when you erase the layer where rests the architecture, you remove the body, so to speak, so you have only the organs. And I start to play a lot with it. So for me, in a way, the two films are like the two eyes, so camera obscura, so it's the two eyes of that creature. Then you have all the cables, of course, that are the vein and the blood circulation. Then you have the two ears with the two pianos. Then you have the digestive system with the yeast. And they start to, and as we know, the body is more made of water than anything else, so you have the pons and the pons are carrying theta waves. So, which is the way that you use in order to remember things. So then you start to have also a bit of memory. And then you start to slowly form sort of like a weird creature that I'm starting to get really fascinated by. I'm turning mad. But it's another way also to, because it starts from the space, but that the space produces its own kind of like hyper object,
Yeah.
As if I'm just there as a vector, from the need from the creature to come out, and I provide the tools to do so.
Very often I have the feeling that your objects are invitations to make things present who are absent. The marquees, it's like a performance tool, usually used to make a proclamation, but in your work, and especially in these exhibitions, it's just the thing itself. It's not telling what's written on it. It's outside how it's usually. So you mentioned in a conversation that for you exhibitions are conversations between objects that avoid to be symbols.
Mm-hmm.
So they have their own beauty, they have their own, let's say, composition, but in the same time they start to have a kind of conversation that doesn't use our words. That's for me also something that is very different from theater. But it's scripted, and that's also an interesting development in your work, how it started to be scripted. By the way, you mentioned that Norman Klein was the person who gave or developed this term of scripted space. What does it exactly mean for you, and how do you understand this idea?
No, he defined it in a book called on the Baroque architecture, where he was saying like in the Baroque you will have a moment when you walk through the space where you walk through, produce the meaning of the building channel, called your position in it. So things appear and disappear if you walk, and the perspective are played with, so what you think is flat in fact has a deepness and so forth. and he invented this fantastic idea of the space linked to the script space, which I really loved. So, yeah. So I take it like that, really. It's, there's some link between, I think, as soon as you start to play with time and space, you sort of like start to play a little bit in the Baroque kind of domain,
But what is interesting in comparison to what the Baroque architecture used to make is that you in a way you include two other elements, time, which is not included. You don't build a cathedral or a palace. Time is included, so that's the reason why perhaps an exhibition in a way has to stop at a moment, and also the persons or the visitors are included. So it's in a way a complexification of the Baroque model of the trompe-l'œil, the scripted space, because it's also scripted time, scripted life in a way.
The trompe-l'œil is precisely both, time and space. Space-based form, because it exists in both dimensions.
No, but I just wonder when you spoke. I just wondered. It's interesting, but in a way there is a difference between your exhibition. It's exactly that. It's a written space, but there is something extremely different from you. This exhibition is not a cathedral, so. The question why it is different. So that's the reason why I said that you included time, you included person. Also because in a way, what is interesting in this kind of inclusion, based on the fact that, for instance, the youths are influenced by us, is that you are part of this special effect. So you as a visitor, you are a sort of part of this extremely strange cathedral who is based on itself, perhaps. I don't know, but it's it's an interesting question. I think that you add something more in relationship to in comparison to the Baroque model.
I mean, it's a development of the idea of script. For me, as an outside eye, I would say, of course, part of this script is different kinds of principles. So let's say one is the composition in a musician, like a music score. Philippe uses very often music as a kind of abstract principle of composition, and sometimes it's algorithm, sometimes it's in this exhibition and your last exhibitions, microorganisms have been the principle that gives the important influence to the script to be alive as itself. And in your exhibitions in China and Mexico, you make this kind of encounter with real people who interact with this microorganism. So I think the script is not that literally. It becomes more and more something that is alive by itself.
But that came from John Cage. My understanding of John Cage, the last show that did Rolling All Over was precisely this idea that what he was using chances as a tool to avoid producing a periodic cycle. So things will come back, but never exactly the same, and never exactly at the same time. And so that was all the chance operation that he was doing. And in my case, I don't use EQ or chance operation, but I use a list that precisely do that. I do some scenes, and then they send me back their own kind of like understanding of it. So I fuck it up a little bit, and the things start again. So it's start again, but now it's like the same place and time that was started. So it's my way to produce over time series of changes. And what's interesting now is that because I've been using the same list population since 3 years, and they are mutating now in the DNA. So, which is fascinating. But you think that those yeasts have been exposed to a world. You know? The world will be like the world of New York, and the world of the exhibition in New York, and then exhibition in London Tate, and then in Mexico. They've been exposed to this world. My show in the exhibition were for them their world, you know, their cosmology. So they will start to react to it, and by reacting to it and producing numerous amount of generation, they start to mutating. So they are the memory in a way of what took place the last 3 years. You know?
We act like in Mexico.
Yeah,
for moments.
They dream of Mexico.
Which is interesting because this fact that in a way there is a script which has in a way its own life leads us back to the idea of body, because in a way it's as if this script were the genetical code, because what is the genetical code is in a way a script, but which has its own life, which is something different from the life of the entire body. So exactly in the same way, we have in a way this script in the East, which control everything, but the script itself has its own life, which is not exactly the same life of the exhibition. And this is the principle of life, in a way, the principle of, not of life, of living bodies, in a way. So this is interesting, this, in a way, mise en abîme.
But you work now on the book on reincarnation, no?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that? You're going to be like Philippe Parreno, you tell like 25 minutes.
No, it's a very simple idea based on two discoveries. The first discovery was I read a text extremely interesting by Aldo Leopold, which is one of the fathers of the ecological ethics in the States, who wrote an extremely beautiful text at the end of his life called Odyssey. So, and it's a rewriting of Homer's Odyssey, where he's describing the life of an atom. So, and he said, in a way, if you want to develop an ecological consciousness, you have to think. You have to have the same kind of consciousness of an atom, and an atom, in a way, passes through different stages of different lives. It is first a rock, and then it becomes grass, and then part of a cow, and so on. This is a sort of cycle. And the moral of the story by Leopold is that you have to live fast and die a lot of times. So it's and in a way, we because of Christianity, we are supposed to we always suppose that then we live just in this body, in this human and personal body. So the idea of resurrection is that in a way you are linked in a very, very essential way to die. And we forget that even from a scientific point of view, we are the reincarnation of grass and cows and elephants, and we will, at any case, reincarnate from a material point of view in different species. And even, even the simple act of eating is a form of reincarnation, because I've eaten today, for instance, chicken, let's say chicken, and in a way that I take the flesh of the chicken, and the chicken takes reincarnate in my life, in my body. So this is the main idea, and in a way I think that what you are doing in art is extremely linked to this idea of reincarnation, because what is interesting in what you show is that this idea that life is sort of trance, something which passes from body to body, from subject to subject, from object to subject, and then to object. In a way, this kind of exhibition here is exactly the same. It is the life of East, which is controlling the the lights and the sounds and so on. So life is not something which is based just in an anatomical way in this body, but it passes through a lot of bodies. That's I spoke a little bit less than 25 minutes. And,
yeah, let's open for your questions. If you hungry to ask Philippe Parreno or us,
or Emanuele.
don't hesitate, or Emanuele, don't hesitate. There's one question.
Well, I have one question. As someone who's an outsider to the art world, I wondered, a lot of what you're talking about sounds quite ephemeral and not bound in objects as much as other exhibitions. So I wondered if you could tell a little bit about how you work with that on a daily basis, like how you work with ideas within that 8-hour workday, but how it actually goes from idea to exhibition space in a normal week, a month in your life?
Yeah, I work like an artist in my studio, so it's quite boring. And I work with, I have different tools in Japan, but I write some ideas down and then I try things out on the 3D models, you know. And sometimes now I use also some virtual tools because it's kind of because of this virtuality that we've been talking. I've been really influenced a lot by Suryo at the beginning, but at the same time when Suryo was, I read at Suryo, there was the invention of the VR, the virtual reality by Jean Danier, who became a friend after. And in '87, he invented this the lepaglos and the mask to get into what he defined being as a post-symbolic way of communicating, because you will be instead of like using language, you will bring the color directly or form to and exchange it together. So I was influenced by that. So I'm still using a bit of that, and then a conversation, with Thomas.